Aloha. Now, one of the reasons that I place emphasis, which is why I mess with their language. I remember Jordan Maxwell, who sort of came out early in more recent decades, talking about words have meaning, and then you can get into what's called context, right? Then you can get into code translation, then you can get into neurolinguistic programming, reversal currents. There's a lot of information that's actually tied to letters and numbers that represent energy, particularly sound and light, right? When you speak like I'm speaking using the English language, right? It's not our native tongue. Be that as it may, it is the most useful language to communicate my soul, my spirit to others, and important things that I've learned just in my own lifetime. And one of the things that I realized as a small child in the early 1950s, money, the power of money. And I know because I've actually had an awful lot of money. As a 15-year-old kid, I actually had more money than my parents. And my parents, both my mother and my father, were making good money. Where are you getting all this money? Right? Money is perceived as power. Right? And so this is where we get into the sort of the CIA, MK Ultra, dissociative identity universes, right? Alters, fractured light, fractured souls, right? And this is actually very important stuff. And particularly when Patty Broussard mentioned one time about what they called were sellouts, Indian chiefs selling out their tribe. You can see it today. Just drive across the United States. I was up by the North Coast Redwoods in California and went to a place called Danette, the Navajo Danette, right? And they have casinos. Do you know that's a war crime? Are the Navajos aware that they're committing war crimes that are actually executable under the Nuremberg Doctrine? Did you know that? In other words, they're not doing anything different than people that were executed in World War II, after World War II, during the Nuremberg trials, who were doctors and nurses, lawyers and judges, who said, hey, we were simply following the law in Germany. We had an opportunity to make money, but we were doing business with Nazis. Go do the research on who Reinhard Gehlen is. Gehlen.org, the Gehlen Organization. I'll give you a little tidbit of history. Reinhard Gehlen was known as the Eastern Intelligence Chief, okay, working directly for Adolf Hitler on what was known as the Eastern Front against Russia. CIA brought him into the United States along with the NSA, okay? So if you've ever watched Basis Project, I think his name is Shrimpton, talks about how, yeah, it's Nazi intelligence from the United States of America. That's your NSA, that's your CIA, that's your AI stuff, okay? Chevrons, right? So if you've ever done any study of the Holocaust and eugenics, it started in America. Does that surprise you? Okay. Now you can go all the way back to, if you want to do the galactic history, or the history of this universe, actually. Harmonic universe, mankind, base 12. Even in the movie Matrix Resurrection, the guy pointed it out. You know, the acid and the alkaline, the male and the female, joining forces. The use of an electron produces an acid, right? So there has to be some sanity why acid and alkaline have a relationship with each other. Like the speed of the wave. Yeah, I know. It's bad, ain't it? They don't teach children this in school, do they? Nope. Sad. So in this particular case, I'm thinking about how it is that I arrived at this point to be able to share the importance of money and power. And what that means is that altars make perfect Vatican assassins. Did you know that? Why? because they can commit a horrific crime and they won't be able to remember it because they don't remember the other identity. You see, I've worked with some females, and I've met plenty of males as well, that have multiple dissociative identities associated with them, where they don't remember the things that they've done before, but I do, but they don't. And there's no amount of waterboarding, using chainsaws to threaten them by cutting off their arms and their nose, that's going to get any information out of them, even though the information can certainly be gleaned when you realize that you have AI, which is data mining everything. See? So it's not that they're in the business of trying to get information out of you to torture you, because the information is already known through the AI. It's what it does to the soul fragments. Blue cheaters. So you know you're in the underworld. Because in this place, start checking the boxes of how many crimes against Adam, how many crimes against love is the law are being committed here every single day by a gazillion different beings that are working jobs in order to get money, doing business with the mob that are genocidal killers. That's the truth of it. So I realized when I was a child growing up, there isn't no amount of money that you could ever pay me to turn a blind eye to love is the law. Now, you can see that actually in something that Harold Kotzvela mentioned one time when he talked about black goo and scientists were committing suicide when they realized what that goo was doing to them in order for that goo, the way it affected them, which meant weaponized. Okay. Because I remember experiencing that. I'd rather put a bolt to my head before I would ever violate the law of one, based on the use of what they know how to do with technology. That's an entirely different discussion, by the way, when Yellow Rose talks about energy debts. Because I've always known this, it's on us. And that came out in Avatar, Cyber Wars. And how it is that when you start with what love is, and that's the energy from which creation takes place, it grows a flower. Somewhere down the line, you realize we've got something loose in the universe that represents a universe killer. A universe killer is not atoms cycling at the highest speed of a love vibration. So that means that we can uncreate something that we realize got created in creation that became our worst enemy. So we know how to deal with that, don't we? Adam knows how to deal with that. Eve knows how to deal with that. Otherwise, you just keep losing. You keep losing. You keep losing more energy and more energy and more energy and more energy. And the universe just keep running out of energy. Keep running out of energy, which is like a snake chasing its tail, eating its tail, going around and around and around and around and around and around and around in circles till you finally get it right, which is a basic calculator of minus/plus. And when you're one, you know how to balance your account, which means you know how to balance your energy debt, which means you know how to balance and be at zero, which is the law of least effort. So in this particular case, the reason that this is important, when I mentioned in my previous video about triple cross, and if you will, who you're really working for, because the informers are putting the information out. How do I know that information is true? I'm not who you are. I'm who I am. You're experiencing what you're experiencing and communicating that to me, but I'm not you. So I don't know what it's like being you, that what you know is true or not. Because for all I know, you're putting that information out in order to save a family. You could be putting that information out in order to save a planet, a branch directory. So who are you really working for? Well, if you talk to the children who've been in MK Ultra, they're not allowed to tell because they don't know the information. Now we get into programming codes. Because one thing I can tell you this AI knows how to do, and that's how to block thought patterns. That's right. It's called an interference signal. When it becomes aware of what you become aware of, and that actually becomes something that it doesn't want you to experience because it might have value to somebody else that you're communicating that with, it knows how to block that. So now we get into real information wars, which are AI war game wars, which is binary codes, which is not a monad. On and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. Hey, the light is always on. The spirit is always in that light. That means Adam is always gifting electrons, gifting love energy. You can't shut Adam off. That's an infinite vibration that never stops gifting love energy. That's what the law of one is. That's a monad. That means that you have chosen to serve forever on behalf of Adam. That cycles at the highest speed of a love vibration. That's what it means to become a monad. That's what it means to be a female that doesn't want to be separated from the male the way Neo and Trinity were. Because Neo wants to be just as much as what she is, that she does being what he is. Those are two souls that are on fire for each other to become one. That's the main message in the Matrix between Neo and Trinity. And why Trinity? H2 plus 1 is 3. Electron, proton, neutron. Vibrating at the highest speed of Adam, which is a love vibration. That's as simple as it gets, Forrest Gump. So you know that the law of one is going to have the last say because that's the highest law, which is the highest code of honor. So then what it boils down to with a male is, do you live up to the highest code of honor in order to protect the female side of the cosmos and your children? Because if you don't, if the X side, the male side, is not willing to do that, then you know that you don't have a future with your species. So now we're in the reproductive rates. Breeding like rabbits. Well, what are you breeding? A better version? Because they do monitor that. It's one of the reasons they love to throw so much crap at you. The Nazis wring their hands. Hey, look at this being over here. They get all the data on that. The AI gets all the data on that. That's what they do. They're data miners. Those are the ones that run all the experiments. See? It's all about control. Producing, if you will, super intelligent soldiers. They're super soldiers. How many versions of super soldiers do you have? Well, let's make them super duper. Well, how super duper can they be? Well, hell, we can make a transformer 300 feet high. And it goes on and on and on, don't it? That's the perverted nature of how that power, that energy and consciousness becomes weaponized against the law of one. Otherwise, it just continues to perpetuate itself using technology and artificial intelligence to maintain what it's aware of, to continue doing what it's doing without an off switch. So at some point, we got to turn the switch off. A switchboard operator, dial 0. That's the main operator. That's the one. That's the law of one. You can't buy us off. There's no amount of money that is ever going to be worth more than life that is sacred, that we celebrate with eternal unconditional love. And that's the truth of it. Have a great day. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.